Why teach facts? This is a One School for All lecture by me, Andrew Thomas, at Østfold University College, which I would like you to watch by Wednesday, the 19th of November 2025, when we next meet. So why should we teach facts? Well, first of all, it's not because facts come first and skills come later. You can usually get children to reflect about anything and then hang some facts on those reflections and skills. If I'm going to give a short answer, I would say that the reason we need to teach facts today is that postmodernism has played with populist fire. So I'm going to give a couple trends in educational studies which I noticed when I became a teacher myself a few years ago. And I don't think a great deal has changed since I myself became a teacher. So I think you'll recognize some of these trends and then react to them towards the end. Educational research very often boils down to effects studies, which is to say, what happens if we do this? And that's why I've put David Mitchell's What Works book on the reading list. It's just a combination of lots of studies of what happens when we do this, and is it a good thing? Is it a good result? And these are important things, especially in the field of medicine, for example. You can talk a lot about the chemicals within a particular medicine, but at the end of the day, you don't know whether medicine works or not, unless you've just given it to a lot of people and find out whether they've got better or not. But in education and psychology, there's something a little bit worrying about the question, what works? Because we're basically asking the question of manipulation. And I'm going to put the question of manipulation to one side for one moment, because whether we act on this research or not, the studies which tell us what works and how people are going to react to our interventions as teachers, these are studies that render humans predictable. And so essentially we've got this trend which builds on the predictability of humans, builds on our nature, if you like, biological nature as sapiens. What do sapiens do when they are confronted, for example, with fun games in the lesson? And of course, we see this research sped up and overfed in the shape of data-driven, individualized market research that makes us scroll through memes and cat videos every evening. The second trend in education is this trend towards asking, whose truth is it? It's become normal to question who is being served by truth claims in education. And that is no doubt useful. Every day history is staged, and I'm thinking particularly of history teaching. But every day history is staged and retold by people searching for both wisdom on the one hand and power on the other. And so we need to be skeptical towards those truth claims. But I think asking the question of whose truth is it, rather than what is the truth, becomes less helpful when we are confronted with conspiracy theorists and, of course, Holocaust deniers as the worst example of this. When I learnt how to teach history, we were encouraged not to get bogged down in issues of what really happened, but to give our pupils space to write their own histories, to stage stories that they could own rather than submit to the story given them by long, dusty books and old men wearing ties. Children weren't meant to learn the truth. They were meant to take part in constructing their own truths. And there are some excellent points here. As a teacher, you should be more concerned in the truth, or the knowledge, I would say, the knowledge which is being developed in the brains of the children in your classroom, rather than just spouting out the expressions of your own knowledge. But when I was taught how to teach history, this often resulted in something that we would call methodological agnosticism, where you shouldn't correct pupils, but you should let them organically develop whatever truth about the past that they were able to develop. So the first trend was the predictability of our pupils, and the second trend was being agnostic about the past. So these are two, a pair that go together. And that is to say that the past is negotiable. You can't just rely on one view of the past when you are talking with children or talking in public. Whereas humans are predictable. We know how humans react to cat videos. We know how they react to gamification of learning. All of these effect studies have been done. And Timothy Snyder on your reading list, but also Hannah Arendt, one of my favourite thinkers, they think that this is all upside down. But they both in our current times, Timothy Snyder's still alive and working. He's only slightly older than me. So both in our current time and in the 1970s, they identified these two trends of rendering humans predictable by demographic studies and rendering the past negotiable by questioning critical studies of history. Arendt's quotations about lies in politics regularly go viral because her thought is extremely recognizable in today's reality of alternative facts and the need for media vigilance. And their alternative is to turn this all on its head. That we need to live lives, and for us that means allowing our pupils to live lives in such a way that the future is negotiable and that humans are unpredictable. We want the past to be different from what the future is going to be. And of course, in our moment of climate emergency, that is a very physical need. We need the future to be different from the past. And in many ways, we need that future to be unpredictable. We don't have all the answers. But in order to do that, we need to criticize, we need to think and talk politically, and that involves some kind of agreement about the past, knowing where we came from, what is happening in our world today. And without understanding the way things are, it becomes impossible, think Snyder and Arendt, to make adjustments to it as citizens. Now, you will find fact resistance in many forms when you look after children. Doubtless you will meet children who have fallen prey to conspiracy theories. I certainly have. And maybe you will meet children who've been brought up to believe lies. There are many. We also that must have happened to us. And these things are going to happen all the time, that we meet these children and we need to correct them. Probably the most normal experience, though, is just when we as teachers or as nursery leaders tell children things and the children don't believe us. It's a really frequent experience, and it's the basic work of being a teacher to deal with that and maybe not to accept it. You need to find some ways of how you're going to deal with this when you experience it. And perhaps the first step towards dealing with it is to make sure we are not deceived about the world ourselves. And that takes vigilance, it takes hard work, and it takes courage. I'll see you in class.